Go ahead.
All right. So good morning, everybody. Today is June the 2nd. And as usual, our little mantra is Augmandino, a little modified. The slaughterhouse failure is not in our destiny. We shall persevere until we succeed. It's Augmandino, a little modified for us. So today we're going to, very simple, there's a 6-part series that we're going to do. And it starts with how to build a successful team. So the first little introspection that I just wanted to add to that, but who is a leader? And it's a person who does and achieves by doing, leading by example. Lead yourself first. Motivate yourself first. You're the first person that has to lead yourself. Joe Scalia sent me a little blurb here about Jimmy Butler, overcoming obstacles. He's a person that was playing, I think, in the Heat, and he's an incredible guy who was abandoned by his family and so on. And he became a rock star on the basketball team. So that's leading by example. That he sent me that, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Because we have to lead ourselves first. Lead by example. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, building a successful team isn't something that we're all used to doing, you know, depending on where you came from, what your previous history was. And it's more than just finding a group of people with the right mix of the professional skills that we need to perform our jobs properly, or to build our team, build our organizations properly. It's more about finding the right people for the job. You know, Lawrence always brings up the square peg in a round hole. You know, if we don't have the right people, if they don't have the right dedication, they don't have the right belief system, they're probably not the right people. You know, and if you've ever listened to Lawrence do a 3-way call, he really tries to find the qualities of the individual and whether or not they're a right fit for what we're doing. So, you know, the first thing that we need to do when we're talking about building a successful team is make a plan. You know, you need to have clear and measurable goals for what you want to accomplish. So what do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? And then make a plan on how you're going to get there. Inertia is the enemy of us all, right? Galileo was the father of the principle of inertia, and it basically says that, you know, it's the notion that a body at rest stays at rest until something causes it to move. And so in this little series that we're doing, we're going to first start talking about how to build a successful team. We're going to get into how to run a more effective meeting, how to increase engagement in those meetings, and what you need to do to keep people engaged. And then we're going to get into some tips on improving team productivity. And the productivity piece of it is where this whole principle of inertia comes in. If we can't get those on our teams to be productive, if we can't get them out of their rest state and get them actually doing something and moving, we're not going to be able to build successful organizations. And so, you know, this whole planning piece is super important. You know, knowing what you want to accomplish before you start sharing that with others. You need to have a clear vision of what you want to accomplish. You know, what are your specific goals? And then we need to, you know, carry those over and let them rub off those goals and what you want to accomplish rub off on your other team members. So, you know, hiring well isn't enough. You know, you have to limit your priorities. What are your priorities? The Jim Collins, who is the author of Good to Great and Built to Last, said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any, because you have way too many. You can't be a master of that more than 3 priorities. So, you know, one of the things that's really important is that we need to manage our team, but it's really not that simple. You know, we always say that we have a volunteer workforce, and it's even harder to get them motivated and get them moving and have them buy into to your goals and what you want to accomplish. Leaders have to play a more hands-on role to make sure that the group works well together. right? Create that cohesiveness. And then you have to keep them focused on the right priorities. And if you have too many priorities, it's really, really hard to keep them focused on those priorities. So there's 6 main drivers for creating a strong culture. And that's really important to each and every one of our organizations, is what is the culture that we're trying to instill in our teams. So, these 6 main drivers are things that, if done well, have an they have an outside impact. And these insights are applicable to any team and organization. It doesn't matter how big the organization is. It can be 1 or 2 people, or it could be 50,000 people. So hiring people that are in line with your priorities, what you want to accomplish, your goals, and how you're going to get there is super important. And we have the ability to choose who we want to be on our teams and in our organizations. So it's not about hiring a person, it's about hiring the right person.
And also, okay, so there's so many things that are covered with this. So hiring the right person, well, we're always talking about the human factor, the best people. Who are the best people? Well, everybody can be a best person in his or her field of passion, expertise, and where they shine. So, I've often talked about Dan Burke and Andy Phelps, for example. These are 2 people that see something, they just say, get out of my way and get on with it, and they excel at what they're doing. And they think everybody else is going to be the same, take the ball and run with it. Not everybody is the same. Everybody has a different little motivation thing. Dan's motivation, Andy's motivation, I'm using these 2 because they excel at what they do. And they have done, and they continue to do that. Because what ticks for them, what is for them an obvious target of success, it's not necessarily the same for everybody. So that's what we've got to understand. We've got to understand each one of the people that we're talking to, because everybody's motivated in a different way. Some people in our business are motivated by the empathy about, nourish the children and how we can help other people avoid starvation. Other people are more motivated by, having financial freedom. But these are the things we've got to find. And when we talk about, the way forward and how to do that, we've got to simply be very specific. And those are the SMART goals we're talking about. So we specific. What have we got to do? We've got to make some calls. That's specific. Measurable. We've got a whiteboard. Use it. Put everything in the whiteboard, all the information. Achievable. Discipline. That's discipline. Relevant. No distractions. Time bound. Efficient. There's a SMART base of what we want to do. And if we just apply it to what our business is, or what any business is, then we can do it. And if we only need 2 or 3 maximum goals to be able to be efficient. So for example, if we look at our business, we say, well, what is the goal? The goal is the number of new brand reps every month. How many brand reps do we want every month? How much is the monthly definable percentage of sales increase? Those are the 2 goals that we should have in our minds to be specific about it. What do we need to do? We need to have, 1 new brand rep a month, 1 new brand rep for every 2 months, whatever it is that we want to plan. But we've got to actually specifically make that just 1 or 2 goals that are very, very measurable and that are achievable, relevant, time-bound, and specific. And when we're talking about people that we work with, just think of all the people on this call. We talk about, for example, Jim Traynor is a note taker and a scribe. He's an avid note taker. Martin Forster is an analyst and a strategist. John Swartz is a communicator and team coach. Mike Cook is a details man. All of these are different personalities that come through. We can see that with our calls. These personalities shine in this particular field of what we're talking about. Think about, a rowing boat, a team of people that are in rowing, like, the Cambridge and Oxford races every year. Everybody, we've got to get all of our people to pull in the same direction, at the same speed, with the same energy. That's a huge ask. We're all different. A musical orchestra, a symphony orchestra has 80 to 100 musicians. Think about coordinating musicians with every type of different instrument you can imagine. That's what leadership is, and that's what a conductor does. So either way, the strength of the team will be determined by the leader, the coach, the conductor.
And as a leader, you also need to know your weaknesses. My biggest weakness is I expect everybody to see the opportunity and go out and seize the opportunity, which not everybody's going to do. That's my Achilles heel. I have a hard time working with people who aren't similar to me, that just go out and do the work every day, do what they need to do to be successful, set those goals properly, and then put a plan in place for how you're going to reach them. You'll hear executives talk about their leadership style, and a lot of times you're likely to hear, I hire the best people and get out of their way. But that's a good line that makes sense at a certain level, but it doesn't make sense all the time. Hiring the right people is the most important part of building a strong team. But being able to delegate, to give people more autonomy, creates a very, very powerful motivator. So we need to find the right people, and we all get in the headspace of, I just need to hire people. If you hire the wrong people, you're going to be spending a lot of wasted energy on those people who aren't the right people. Either they're not motivated to be entrepreneurs, they're not motivated at all, they don't have goals, they don't know what they want to accomplish, and you're just going to be spinning your wheels with those people. We need to be looking for people who have a clear vision of what they want, whether it's lifestyle, career. They believe in our mission of promoting health, promoting autonomy, promoting entrepreneurship. Those are the types of people. Those are the right people. And we need to find those that have the strengths to combat our weaknesses, or to enhance our weaknesses. And part of that, is creating a clear roadmap. A lot of times people will ask, where are we going and how we're going to get there? What's the goal? More importantly, how are we going to measure progress along the way? And that sounds simple, but this, measuring progress, measuring where you're going and how you're getting there, and then having the ability to redirect if needed, is one of the most important and most complex pieces of having a successful team. What does success look like for you? What does success look like for your organization? What does success look like for your team individuals, but more importantly, collectively?
Well, when we look at team, it's so cool about what we have, because when we talk about, outside of our type of business, how do you measure the success of the person? It's by sales or by, whatever they're achieving, whatever their goals are. But in our business, it's so much more simple to be able to identify success and how to get there. For example, we have, as I mentioned, the whiteboard. We've got to use that, because from there we can actually monitor the progress of each individual and where and how they're achieving their goals. And when we look at a collective success, those are the team trips, the trips that we have. Who are we going with on these team trips? There's nothing more frustrating than to have earned a trip and you're the only one on your team. Then there's something lacking in our leadership. The first 1 or 2, yes, 3, yes, but then after that, we've got to be able to have several people that earn the trip with us. And that's where we can measure our collective success. And the success we have individually is obviously depends on how you go about it, but obviously the financial success is part of it. But it's also the empathetic success of being able to help people achieve their goals. Because it's not about us, it's about everybody else that's on our teams and the people we engage. So the more we can help people, the more success they have, the more success we have. And that's where what goes around comes around. And that's where we've got to be very open and generous with what we're doing, because we're actually helping ourselves by helping other people. It's all measurable. Everything we have is measurable.
And it has to be measurable. You know, the success of your team is going to be determined by building simple, actionable priorities. And determining these priorities and how they're going to be measured is arguably the most important job of a team leader. Why? Because everything that everybody on your team does will flow from these goals and these priorities, right? If they're focused properly, everything that they do is going to be based on those priorities and those goals. So, you know, another benefit of having a simple plan is that it creates that shared goal. And that's going to offset the tendency of people to be distracted doing other things, or the tendency of them to identify themselves as part of smaller groups within your organization. You want everybody to be into one collective, cohesive group. And so if you think of a football team, for example, there's many tribes within a football team. You've got your offense, your defense, your linemen, your receivers, running backs, defensive backs. But because the goal of the team is clear, a touchdown or a field goal, putting points on the board, there's an external scoreboard. That's the external scoreboard to track progress. And because of that, there's a greater sense of us, there's a greater sense of collaboration, of cohesiveness on that team than there is us versus them. And that dynamic alone can often help your team lead to success. Because if you don't have that, your colleagues, your team members are going to be divided. So metrics are the way that you can help harmonize a large group of people, whether it's, you know, one or two, like I said in the beginning, or thousands.
So I'd like to just give a quick shout out to Joe Scalia, because he initiated several months, probably a year ago, a whole system, a whole plan of action for people to achieve their individual goals of health and weight loss and weight management and so on. And he's done this by creating when you mentioned tribe, that's what brought my attention to it, by making this group of people cohesive and having long-term effects, positive long-term effects on everybody, on each other's health. And they all shout out for each other. The common goal is an individual one for that. It's not like a team where we're trying to score a touchdown, but we're trying to score a touchdown for ourselves individually for whatever we are doing. So whether it's a touchdown for, you know, an extra brand rep every month, or whether it's an extra, you know, so many sales that we're generating, those are our own individual touchdowns that we've got to do. Dan, I was just thinking also, if we agreed that we'll leave the last couple of minutes, unless you got something you want to add to it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, you probably end up with, you know, with a couple of closing thoughts. You know, if you have a company where everyone has their own way of keeping score, that's going to stride everybody. You're going to get incessant fighting and arguments. You know, they're not even arguing about what to do. They're arguing about how to keep score. They're arguing about what the game is that they're really playing, and that's counterproductive. So you need to be very clear with your organization about, you know, where you're headed and how you're going to get there. And then you need to sound like a broken record. Once you have this plan, you have to keep reminding your team of the priorities, even if it feels repetitive. So every, once a week, during your team calls, make it perfectly clear what your goals are, what it is that you want to accomplish, and how you're going to measure that. Let that measurement tool, as Lawrence said, be the success trip. And let everybody know exactly what they need to do to get on that success trip, how many points they need, keep track of it every month, let them know, put together a scoreboard so that everybody knows exactly what they need, have conversations about it, have conversations about how they're going to get the points that they need to get on that success trip, to earn that success trip. It's because in the absence of that, without having a shared scoreboard, people are going to make up their own ways to measure their success. And if you have 5 different people in your organization determining success, the success of your organization 5 different ways, you've gone off course. And along with that, you need to make sure that everybody knows what the rules of the road are on your team. You need to create a culture within your team. You need a set of values, behaviors, cultural guardrails so that everybody knows how to work together. Everybody needs to be on that team call, right? Everybody needs to be on your Ruby call. Everybody needs to be on any type of call that you're doing about shared goals, how you're going to get there, what you need to do to get earn the success trip.
And since this is a volunteer army, all we can do is just exactly what Dan's just said, what you've just said. Everybody should be on the calls, should be doing their own calls, etc. But in a volunteer army, we've got a problem. We've got people that are audio, people that are tactile, people that are visual, and we've got to ensure that they are all on the same boat at the same time, rowing and pulling in the same direction. As you said, if everybody's got their own opinion about how to get there, we'll never have a cohesive team. The only way to get a cohesive team is to coordinate the efforts that are for everybody to actually be on a call, be on these calls, go to Utah, go to the healthcare forum, and as I say, we've got the basis, we've got the whiteboard, we've got all sorts of ways of being able to follow and monitor what we're doing. There has to be accountability on what we are doing for ourselves as well. But there has to be synchronicity as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shared goal. So you should be asking your team members, what can you do to help them? But you should also be asking them what they expect of you in return, right? Because it's not a one-way street. As a leader, you need to give your team, even though you're the one, or collectively as a group, making these priorities, it needs to go both ways, right? You need to help them in the way that makes the most sense for them, and they need to let you know that you're leading them properly. And if you're not, what can you do to do that? All right, Quet, you want to take some comments, Lawrence?
Sure. Anybody got anything to add or comment about?
On Carol's computer monitor, there's a good statement. It says, people follow clarity.
Good. That's nice. I like that. It's a good one. Thank you. Anybody else?
Dan, where are you sourcing the 6 main drivers of creating the culture?
I'll put them into Healthcare Alliance.
It's a book, or is it a guide?
It was a New York Times article.
Okay, definitely one of the. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
one of the challenges is that when you get a crew together, everybody has their own idea, and like you said, creating a cohesive culture is important. So anything we can do to help that is good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, Joe, just since you mentioned that, I just want to mention, when I said lead by example, you started 2 years ago or a year ago, and you said you wanted to lose 50 pounds, and you just did it. And then people said, how did you do it? And that's where you lead by example, show people how to do it. and then you have their accountability, and then you have exactly the blueprint to get people engaged and responsibly doing their own thing under your leadership, which you've proved to be a leader. Everybody on this call is a leader. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. What I'm doing is just going back to my roots of being, an athlete, because it's very familiar to who I was growing up. And if I wanted to achieve something from an athletic point of view, I had the right coaches to help me get there. So doing a process of self-coaching, and now, like Lon said way back in the day, empower self and empower others, right? That's what this call is about, if you think about it. And I'm on the book right now, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and seeing how what he refers to as callousing the mind. When we're doing repetitions, whether it be through miles on a bike or, when we're doing something with calls to prospects, we're doing a process of callousing the mind, where we develop a new circuitry. We develop, Hebb's law, which is the way the mind fires is the way it gets wired. And putting in the reps is what really matters. Now, Dan is a great influencer, and so are you. The question is, what are the reps that people are going to choose to do? What is that, like we got from, not to jump all over the place, but in reality, all the information you guys present is very interconnected. A lot of what I heard today was right from the book, 4 Disciplines of Execution, right? Having that scoreboard there for everybody to see. And when you provide that scoreboard to yourself and then do self-reporting to your coach, who's overseeing your progress and making recommendations on what you can do, that's the coaching system for anything, whether it's sales, whether it's personal growth, whether it's, fitness, whether it's financial health with your financial advisor. Great example. You go to your financial advisor and you show them, this is the money we're making, this is where we're spending it, these are our goals, this is what we want to accomplish. The financial advisor is going to tell you, chart a course for you to where to go based on your priorities and what you want. I mean, we're actually literally in the process of doing that, my wife and I. He's a coach. We're all coaches. But first we must be self-coached. And first we must be coachable. So it's not about discipline or motivation. It's not about motivation, because motivation will get you to do something for a day or two. It's about staying focused and disciplined on a goal that you want to accomplish and having somebody to report to. And more important than accountability, someone yelling at you and telling you what you do. People look at your accountability as that. I don't look at it as that. I look at it as a partnership. We're partners with people who want to create something in the space of health and wellness. That's what we are, and wealth, health and wealth. So thanks for the call, guys. It's always an inspiration, and I appreciate you guys being phenomenal teammates and helping others help themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Anybody else got anything they want to add? No?
All righty.
Right.
Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll see everybody next Friday.
Here's a little pearl that I'd like to depart with. It's June the 2nd, and on my little Instagram thing, I said, prune the bad habits. So let's start looking at pruning any bad habits we've got, so that we can every month do something new, just something better. Prune the bad habits. Thanks everybody for being on the call, and we look forward to seeing you on Monday morning call with Scott Bennett, and on Wednesday with Mansi and Kent, and on the Tuesday calls with Dan and Michael and John Swart at different times. And thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Lawrence, Dan. Very nice.